Did you know that there are 8 secret tool upgrades in Silksong that create powerful enhanced versions of existing tools, provide them with unlimited uses, or make completely new tools altogether? Well, today I'll be showing you what you need to do to collect all of them, and importantly, which option you should choose for one specific tool that comes with an irreversible decision that you can easily mess up if you aren't careful, so make sure not to skip this one. Welcome to another installment of the Silksong Handbook. First up is the Curveclaw upgrade, which is definitely one of the tougher ones to figure out and can only be accessed in Act 3 of the game. The normal Curveclaw is already a strong performer against bosses, but the Curvesickle cranks things up to 11, boasting an insane 70% damage increase and absolutely shredding anything it comes into contact with. A super quick note for the rest of the video with regards to damage numbers and ammo capacity. These are all numbers tested at maximum tool pouch upgrades to make damage comparisons all apples to apples. Your own damage numbers may vary slightly if you're not maxed out, but relative to each other, their performance will be almost exactly equivalent, save for some rounding differences. If you walk by this area in the far fields in the earlier stages of the game, you probably saw this target thinking, there's gotta be something I can do here, and yet no matter what you tried, nothing happened. Well, when Act 3 begins, you'll find 3 more targets added to the arena, and if you hit all 4 with a single Curveclaw throw, then a Scar Scout will be impressed and request that you give them your Curveclaw. Should you accept, they'll take it and run off, and you'll probably be thinking, that sneaky little rat just pulled a fast one on me. Well, worry not, just rest at a bench, and upon your return, you'll find the new and improved Curvesickle waiting for you there. Against enemies with large hitboxes, this thing can absolutely shred, so definitely give it a whirl. Next up is a likely familiar tool if you were thorough in your exploration of Bone Bottom at the start of the game. The Druid's Eye is given to you by the Moss Druid NPC after collecting 3 Mossberries for her, but there are actually a total of 7 you can acquire throughout the game that, when given to her, reward you with a more powerful version of the tool called the Druid's Eyes. Instead of recovering half a silk charge for every hit that you take, you instead get 2 half silk charges, making it doubly potent to its weaker counterpart. Now, I don't necessarily think this is an S tier tool, as it does use up a blue slot, which are usually reserved for the most powerful tools, but it's honestly better than you probably think, and can more reliably bring you up to 9 silk territory to either activate your crest specials faster, or just let you get your heal off quicker. When you do the math, assuming you're taking single damage attacks or taking 2 mask damage attacks that are registered as 2 single mask hits, you're getting 3 silk for every 3 hits that you take, which is worth a single mask of health. This means that it actually performs almost identically in effectiveness to the multi-binder, in the sense that by the time you need to heal from taking damage, you will have gained an equivalent amount of silk from the Druid's Eyes to allocate to a heal as you would have from getting the extra mask of health from the multi-binder. The difference here being that you'd probably swap out the multi-binder completely and only use the single heal option for 3 mask healing instead of 4 from 2 sets of 2. But you'd also then be able to decide whether you use that extra silk offensively if you wanted as well, giving you greater overall flexibility if you want to full send the end of a fight to clutch a boss kill instead of just healing. Alternatively, you could actually just run both of them and also pair it with the injector band for quick, frequent, and strong heals all at once. Overall, I think it's actually a pretty solid pick if you don't have some of the other blue tools that are situationally better, and it's so much better than the base version, which is arguably one of the worst tools in the game. In case you don't have all the Mossberries yet, here are the locations really quickly. The first 2 you'll likely have, as you find them right at the beginning of the game, with Berry 1 just up this set of steps, and then number 2 being pretty hard to miss on the climb up throughout the rest of the area, but tougher to grab without some extra mobility skills if you tried to get it in the actual first minutes of the game. The third is in the same part of Moss Grotto, but requires the needle in to access. Just go down the teleporter, then to the left to the bench, into the water to find a secret path that will eventually lead you to the berry, along with some other goodies. Berry 4 requires the wall cling ability or the float ability, and is above the bone grave. Berry 5 is directly above Bone Bottom, where that little lift can bring you up and down, and that little flying rat with the berry will be flying just below the platforms there. Number 6 is directly to the right along that path, so it'll be easy to grab. And finally, our 7th berry is actually on the other end of the map and requires you to have the double jump ability to get to. Just to the left and above Songclave at the first shrine, you can enter the memoriam, which to the right of the entrance of it will have the final Mossberry. Bring the delectable green blobs to the Moss Druid and you'll be rewarded with your elegant emerald amulet. Now, I'll take the L here if you guys don't agree with me calling the next 2 tools secret, but I think at least in general they qualify as out-of-the-way upgrades that you could easily miss during Act 3. Plus, there's some fascinating functions built into these next 2 tools that I want to discuss here today rather than making another video to cover them all over again. If you've encountered the magnificent Trobio once already and decided to take him down a peg by beating his face in with your needle, you'll have acquired the Red Claw Mirror, which is a pretty solid tool on its own. Once you reach Act 3 though, you get the privilege of giving him another beatdown in exactly the same area you found him the first time, assuming you've picked up his wish at the first shrine wish wall, and upon killing him, you'll in turn collect the purple claw mirror for your efforts, which really amps up the tool's power. Now the claw mirror in general is very interesting in terms of how it deals damage, and with a baseline attack, it'll do 15 damage followed by 2 10 damage hits. But you can go a step further and use the multi-binder to have 2 attacks go off instead to deal 70 damage, assuming your target stays close enough for long enough to be hit by everything. However, if you also run the injector band, which speeds up your healing, it actually heals so fast that the second damage tick from the first explosion doesn't get red, and you actually only deal 60 damage, which I found kind of funny. Maybe this was an oversight or intentional to be a trade-off for being able to more reliably get all the damage off in one go, which I honestly think is fair if that was the plan, because it's actually quite tough to have both full hits land unless you find a very good window to use it against the boss. And I think generally it's better to womp a boss with nail hits during a stun unless your silk is already full, rather than healing. That being said, this is a pretty damn good amount of damage that you just get to dish out for free anytime you heal, so you don't have to feel as guilty using up your silk to top up your health instead of using silk skills. Once you get the stupendous claw mirrors, your damage will get cranked up by a significant amount, now doing a base hit of 30 followed by 3 ticks of 12 damage each for 66 damage just on the single heal variant. When you bring the multi-binder back into the mix though, you can technically hit 132 damage, assuming both heals get off on the target and you're not using the injector band, as we run into the same problem as the normal claw mirror, only this time you lose 2 of the 3 damage ticks from the first heal, so you actually can only do 108 damage. But come on, 108 damage dealt just for healing is absolutely disgusting. This was one of my favorite tools to run once I got it, and it's amazing for one-shotting more general mob clusters, so definitely give it a try if you haven't. It's probably one of the best tools to use when you're still learning bosses for the first time, as it's very unlikely you'd have enough excess silk to use silk skills, while this will provide at least some supplemental damage while you're likely healing a lot while learning new movesets. Now this next one isn't going to change the tool itself by any meaningful amount, but it does make it viable to use it regularly, and that's the upgrade to the Plasmium Phial. Normally you can only hold a measly 20 charges before having to recharge it over in the Wormways, which is more hassle than it's worth in my opinion to actually use it, but once you reach Act 3 you'll be able to return to Alchemist Xylitol for another quest that upon completion will reward you with the Plasmium Heart, which, assuming you have the shell shards to cover the cost for, will provide you with an unlimited supply of plasmium to draw from. This can be great for when you know you're going to commit to some more intense platforming challenges, or you just aren't into using weapon tools and would rather get a quick hit of that wonderful blue juice. Also, if you weren't aware of this, you can become a bug drug addict if you inject yourself with 9 plasmium, which is only practically possible by using the Architect's Crest, unless you were to do this manually in the Wormways by hitting the plasmium blobs instead. This will completely replace your existing masks with plasmium masks that slowly regenerate over about 6 seconds per mask. Your heal will be massively nerfed, however, only refilling the currently charged mask, so you're almost always better off using your silk to remake more plasmium on the Architect Crest and giving yourself another hit of the blue juice for a single mask at a time for 6 times the value of a regular heal, but at the cost of many more shell shards. So it's a pretty cool hidden mechanic that has its uses, but I think they're quite niche. If you haven't found Xylitol at all yet and want to know how to get to him, you'll need to have a simple key and head there either from the upper part of Bone Bottom going far to the left, or make your way down from the Shellwood Bellway to the door. You'll eventually find him on the upper portion of the newly accessible area to get his first quest, and then the second probably right after you rest at a bench outside of his lab, assuming you're in Act 3. Have fun injecting the bugs for this quest. It's a bit frustrating, but I found the easiest way to do this is to find the jumpy guys that had a 2 attack cycle that was very easy to set up the injection for after they finished their shoot attack, and then you just jab them right when they surface to prep their dash attack. Now for the most mysterious tool in the game by a large margin, the Silkshot. This ancient weapon is hard enough to come by to begin with, but the fact that you'll be incredibly unlikely to know that there's not 1, not 2, but 3 different places you can go to repair it makes things even more complicated. Oh, and did I mention that once you pick one that you can't switch it for the others, and that if you progress a certain NPC too far that you permanently lock yourself out of one of the choices. Okay, so I'll go over how to get it first, since I imagine it's one of the most likely to be missing tools in the entire game for players. Head over to Bilewater either from Sinner's Road or from the Bilewater Bellway, and just head as far right as you can without platforming to the upper levels at all. You'll think you've hit a dead end, but of course there's a secret path leading through the putrid waters that brings you to Weavenest Merglin, which is a pretty small area to explore, so you shouldn't have any trouble grabbing the ruined tool here, which we'll be repairing to create our Silkshot of choice. The item description gives you a bit of a hint as to what you should do with it, reading, "Remains of an ancient weaver implement, broken and inoperable. A crafts bug of high skill may be able to repair it." The first person that likely comes to mind is the Forge Daughter in the Deep Docks, and they're willing to fix up the tool for a few rosaries and a craft medal, and in return you'll have a Silkshot that comes with 30 shots and deals 20 damage per shot while costing 1 silk to fire. This is the highest ammo capacity of any of the silk shots, and it also fires pretty quick. Obviously, being something that also costs silk to fire though makes the high ammo capacity less attractive, but for non-boss mob clearing it can actually be pretty handy for popping little trash mobs, especially flyers. The second option we have for repairing our Silkshot is the 12th Architect, but if you're like me and you bought out their entire shop really quickly, then you might have a little problem. So hopefully you don't mind that you've locked yourself out of this option, and honestly I wouldn't sweat it because I think this one is kinda bad. You get a 24-shot weapon that fires a 3-round burst, but the damage on it is a little bit weird. Against Grand Reeds at least, I was only doing 18 damage for landing all 3 shots, most of the time doing 10, 5, and 3 damage with the bullets, but on rare occasions it would pop a triple 10 for 30 damage. Now, I only ever noticed this happening when the Grand Reed was doing a retreating movement, so it's either tied to the Grand Reed itself, or this weapon has some inherent damage amp related to enemy movement behaviors. In any case, even if it did do the 30 damage per shot, it's very obviously not consistent, and on average would probably only perform at the same level as the Forge Daughter one, while firing slower and being contingent on landing all 3 shots from the burst, which is far from guaranteed if the enemy has a guarded state it can activate or some other projectile blocking ability. I'd say this is the worst option available. And so what about our final option? There's no one left known for being a great weaponsmith in Farloom, unless... But of course, it's none other than us, the bug that can do it all, the amazing Spider-Woman. So we've got the skills, but we don't have the schematics for the third type. So we're gonna have to go on a little adventure over to Mount Fae to find the designs of the true Silkshot. All you have to do is make the fun trip all the way back up the mountain to where you would have grabbed the Fae down cloak, but jump off the right side edge at the top and hug the wall on the left side to find a secret workshop with a nice little bench to catch your breath at. To the left, you'll be able to assemble the Silksong railgun, which is pretty damn cool and comes with 16 charges of silk blasting fun. These shots deal a whopping 34 damage each and have the ability to pierce as well, making it distinctly better than any of the other options from a damage to silk ratio perspective, but with lower total damage output and a much slower fire rate. While I think few tools are as visually striking as the Silkshot, I still think it's heavily outclassed by some of the other weapon tools in the game. That being said, you can theoretically get this without being too far into the game, so if you were missing some of the better upgrades at the time, then this is more than fair game to use. Plus, the piercing ability of the true Silkshot at least makes it much more compelling to use in general exploration, and with it being a single shot beam, you're likely to get more consistent results than anything with inconsistent cast trajectories like the conch cutters, things that use multiple projectiles, or have a setup time that can give enemies a chance to dodge it like the sting shards. So to summarize, true Silkshot from Mount Fae is best, Forge Daughter is probably second best, then followed closely by the 12th Architect version. But if you've bought all of their items prior to this, then yeah, that won't be possible anyways. Finally, and this will be a quick one that's less of a secret and more of a neat bonus, and excuse for me to talk about my latest Silksong conspiracy. So if you're a fan of chugging Flea Brew like I am, you'll be happy to receive an unlimited free supply of the Yellow Delight from Grishkin anytime you visit them during Act 3, instead of having to pay the 30 rosaries you normally would. It was never a large fee to begin with, but it's a nice little bonus. More importantly though, why is it called Flea Brew and not some other snazzy name? It's not like we call beer human brew, and we do call coffee, brewed coffee. So now I'll never be convinced that this liquid gold isn't actually fermented or boiled awurs, and that they have some weird ritual where they sacrifice the elder fleas and drink them up. I've never seen a Grandpa Flea, have you? In any case, Flea Brew is pretty sick, and it's really nice to pair with the Wanderer Crest, as well as Flint Slate for crests that can handle 2 red tools for some off-the-charts needle DPSing. So definitely pair those 2 up if using throwables isn't really your thing. And that wraps up this entry to the handbook. I've got plans for showcasing a few more really strong tools and how to maximize their potential coming up soon, along with a very in-depth combat entry to show you how to actually get good at combat overall. So if you enjoyed this and are looking for more like it, then consider subscribing. Otherwise, you know the drill. Drop a shot in the comments, let me know another topic you'd like to see me cover, or share some insightful Silksong knowledge yourself so we can all get a little better at the game. If you want to learn more about a few incredibly strong tools that you should add to your shortlist, then check this video out next. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.